We've gotten a surprising amount of Spongebob games this generation. We got that remaster of Battle for Bikini Bottom, the brand new game Cosmic Shake, the Krusty Krab cooking spin-off, and now we have a game centered around Patrick. So let's dive right in. A physics puzzler and more of a goat simulator type game. Here is my review of SpongeBob SquarePants, the Patrick Starr game for the Nintendo Switch. There isn't really much story here. Unlike the other games, this is about Patrick wandering around Bikini Bottom on a day where he can do whatever he wants. And he does little things to help out his friends as he explores the town and just does whatever. One thing I will note about the story is that the voice work will be nostalgic for fans of the series. They brought back the original voice cast from the old TV series for this game's characters, which adds a little bit of a callback charm to it. With gameplay, this is a physics-based sandbox game. As you play, you'll explore a sandbox map of Bikini Bottom with lots of mini-games you can partake in and being able to grab and use physics to ragdoll pretty much the entire game. Now with main progression, this game is completely open. The city is divided into several regions, from Conch Street and the Krusty Krab to the airfield and the Glove World amusement park. There's no set order to what you're doing, so you go wherever you want and interact with whatever you want. Every region has main minigames where you go interact with a character and do the minigame for them. These locations are on your map already and are probably the closest this game has to main objectives. You talk to one of the main cast like SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs, or Mrs. Puff, and you do tasks for them, like building and serving Krabby Patties for the Krusty Krab, racing around town in a boat for Mrs. Puff, or using a water gun to get rid of the jelly Sandy's latest experiment accidentally threw all over town. Some of these are repeated in other regions. Squidward's Clear Out People So I Can Suntan minigame, for example, I did at least 3 to 4 times across the game, and that was the same with the Sandy cleaning missions and SpongeBob's cannon throws. But there are enough different minigames that it doesn't always feel like you're repeating the same games over and over. We've got smaller minigames with vehicles as well, though you have to actually go and find them instead of them being labeled on your map. Jump into a police car and you can take part in a police pursuit, or jump into a fry truck to deliver food to people around town. Think the process of the PSP GTA Stories games, where you could jump into a fire truck and then hit a button to trigger the fire missions. All in all, there's a lot of stuff you can do, plus the smaller feat objectives, where you can find little things like scoring at the basketball court or reaching the top of Squidward's house. All of these things that you can do will earn you sand dollars, the game's currency. While we don't have a shop system here, reaching thresholds of sand dollars will unlock costumes based on things Patrick has worn in the TV series, like having the wooden board stuck to his head and his band uniform. This is also for the game's only main objective, even though the game doesn't really tell you it's the main objective. Your goal in this game is to earn enough sand dollars to participate in the Fry Coke games at Fast Food Coliseum. Win that and the credits will roll, you having quote unquote finished the game. Despite all of these mini games and feats that you can do, I think the freedom of exploration is where the fun of this game is had. Like I said earlier, this is sort of a goat simulator but SpongeBob game. You can wander around and do whatever you want, physics playing a big factor in how everything works. You can pick up and throw all kinds of things around. Most fences, benches, boxes, and other environmental things you can plow through and destroy. And Patrick's main mode of transportation is very similar to the ragdoll physics of those other physics adventure games. When jumping, you can hold the Y button to send Patrick into a rolling animation that can pick up speed, and he rolls his way around Bikini Bottom, demolishing pretty much anything in his way. There are lots of other things you can do to get around as well. You can drive or ride in vehicles, but once you get to the airfield, you can nab the parachute, umbrella, or glider wing attachments to take with you, making navigation a breeze. The glider wings especially make it easy to bounce off a tent or bubble and just glide your way to where you need to go. It's not complete unrestricted flying, but a fun alternative to walking or jumping into a vehicle. Being a physics game, however, it's pretty janky when moving things around. A lot of objects don't exactly fit together perfectly when you throw things at them. Getting a ladder to properly sit on the side of a building so you can climb it is often a tricky and awkward process. Many of the controls feel stiff, especially when aiming an object to throw or turning in a vehicle. But I think the latter has more to do with the Switch version's performance than the game itself. Thankfully, some developers knew some things might break, so they implemented a world reset feature from the pause menu. This does not erase your progress with feats and missions, but it'll essentially just reset every item and object in the world back to its original location, letting you reset and continue to do a mission if something were to glitch out of the game on you. Overall, I think this gameplay loop is neat and cute in a more simple, casual way. There's really not an overarching plot, no story progress pointing you to new levels. It's just a little sandbox game for you to do minigames. And for what it is, I'd call it a neat little time waster if you enjoy SpongeBob. There are a ton of references all over this game. That brings us to content and length. It took me about 5 to 6 hours to get through all of the main minigames, earn 999 sand coins, and clear the fry cook games to get to the credits. After that, you can continue exploring Bikini Bottom to repeat minigames, find missing feats, and unlock the rest of the costumes. Not a terribly huge amount of content for the $40 price tag, but it's alright. Next is presentation. Visually, I think the game looks okay. Patrick looks decent on his render, and some parts of the environment look nice, but most of the game just doesn't have a lot of detail on things like textures. We also have a lot of pop-in, especially when moving quickly through the air or in a vehicle. Performance, however, is the game's main drawback. The Patrick Starr game occasionally runs at 30 FPS, but it is not often. I'd say on average it's running somewhere in the 20s. It seemed somewhat consistent with this lower frame rate in the 20s, so I was able to become accustomed to it relatively quickly, though the lower frame rate added to the clunkiness of how the game works, especially with aiming items you want to throw and driving around in the boats. I'm not sure I'd call it unplayable, as I was able to get through the whole game without too much frustration, but it isn't a super smooth experience on the Switch. One other thing to note is the fact that the game did crash on me a few times as I played. All of these crashes were at the very end of dialogue cutscenes that triggered a minigame right after. Thankfully, the game constantly autosaves, so every time it crashed on me, I rebooted the game and it just resumed where I was, initiating the minigame. That brings us to battery life. The Patrick Starr game gives the original and light models a battery range of 2.5 to 3 hours, while the V2 and OLED models get around 5 to 6 hours. In conclusion, Patrick Starr brings casual sandbox fun to the Switch, offering ragdoll physics, a lot of minigames, and a very chill atmosphere. Now, the downside, it's rather clunky to control at times, doesn't have a massive amount of content for its price, and suffers from performance issues like the frame rate mostly being in the 20s and crashing from time to time. It's not unplayable in this form, but might be better played on the likes of the Steam Deck if you want a consistent and smooth portable adventure. Reviews to Go rates SpongeBob SquarePants the Patrick Starr game for the Nintendo Switch a 6 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.